Temperature 38.4 degrees, and I think we're going to be in for a very entertaining qualifying session. The big question is whether anyone can stop Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor, John.
Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to point standings.
Yep, Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor up at the top. They are 27 points clear of Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito. Ortelli and Raquelme in third, and then Abril and Buch in fourth place, and they know it's a big weekend for them if they want to try and close down the gap to the leaders, Freitz and Vanthoor. Then Cacabueno and Sergio Jimenez completing the top six. And then further down, we got Nicky Meyer-Melnoff and Marcus Vigelhock, then Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies. Siegfried and Seidler as well, two drivers who deserve more championship points than they've managed to gain so far, but that Ferrari has looked quick so far this weekend. Going all the way down, Philippe Salaquada there, 13th in the championship standings. Nick Katzberg is back this weekend, so he'll be looking to add to his 10 points. Justin Kobiak has picked up 8 points as well. So, just 3 minutes till the qualifying gets underway, and there you can see Robin Freitz being strapped in, and as we were saying, John, they're the pairing to beat.
Yeah, very much so. They're the team that has been the form team, particularly Laurens Vanthoor. His young, new teammate for this year, Robert Freitz, has got all the natural speed. We know that from his single-seater background. But, of course, making the adaptation to a GT car with a different level of downforce, different weights. Everything about the car is quite different. So all the talent that you bring to GT racing have to be assessed from a different perspective. And there, in its resplendent blue, is the 84 Bentley Team HTP Vincent Abril, and hopefully he'll not be looking for anything orange or green this weekend.
No, absolutely.
Talking about the McLaren and the Ferrari.
Yeah, they came together at the start of the race in Zolder last time out, and that is Vincent Abril sat at the wheel getting ready to head out onto the track. Then we've got Enzo Ede and Christopher Mies in the number 2 WRT Audi. They were second quickest yesterday, and it looks as though it's Enzo Ede who's going to be going out in the first of the 2 qualifying sessions. We have Q1 and Q2, and then the quickest 10 cars go through to Q3. There's the 77 BMW that's second in the championship at the moment, Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu. That car has only been off the podium once so far this season, and that was a 5th place in the qualifying race in Zolder. So a really strong season for Brito and Abreu.
Yeah, the sister car was very good yesterday in second practice. So again, a racetrack, we keep talking about BMW, certain racetracks play more to their strengths than maybe somewhere which is basically straights, hairpins and straights. So much more complex circuit here in Moscow. Great little racetrack. I mean, little being a pejorative term, it's a racetrack that will not favor one manufacturer over the others. And consequently, as you mentioned just at the top of the program, qualifying here will be tight, and even the good and the great got caught out, and Laurens Vanthoor had a minor off yesterday, which actually turned out to be a little bit more work for the team than WRT had anticipated.
That man there, Marcus Vigelhock, had an off as well at turn 3. Didn't hit anything, but had a couple of spins, as did some of the other front runners out there. So it is a tough little track to try and get hold of.
Yeah, of course, the circuit is not, it's a permanent racetrack, but it's not permanently in use. In other words, there are not events taking place literally by the weekend. Consequently, the track doesn't get used, so the track gets dirty or dusty. That has to be cleared. Then you get the racing line returning. I mean, you can basically see that on the track, you can see the black marks of the cars. That's the entry point that you take coming into turn 1. So overnight, the track will have sort of relaxed again, and it'll take the best part of this first qualifying segment for it to recover to the position it would have been in, well, less than 12 hours ago.
Here's Mark Szorzycki out at the wheel of the 23 RJN Nissan. Great to have the RJN Nissan team here just for this one-off round for Mark Szorzycki's home race. Well, home race is a bit strong. He says it's not really my home race, it's in my country, but it's an 8-hour flight from where I live.
He lives on the eastern seaboard of Russia. I mean, literally, he's nearer to North America than he is to Moscow.
Yeah. So he's winding his way around now, trying to get the heat in the tyres. There's the 71 car of Alexei Vasiliev and Marco Asma. One of the two GT Russian machines we've got here this weekend. Door comes down and they get ready to head out. And it will be Vasiliev who goes out in the first session. Meanwhile at WRT, James Nash departs the pit lane in the number 4 Audi. There's the long back straight.
We've seen that the Nissan, I don't know whether it'll be the case here, but certainly at the Blancpain Enduro event at Paul Ricard a couple of weekends ago, these Nissans were mega quick down the straight, down that long kilometre straight, and that gave them a real advantage in terms of being able to overtake. So we're going on to the start of a flying lap on board into turn 1. And the turn 1, turn 2, almost not quite. You almost try to make 1 and 2, but then of course it goes on and on and on, and that is very much the nature of this circuit. You've got quite long corners, and you think you're about to exit, and then it pinches again. You just catch it there. So 1, 2, and 3 are a sequence of almost double apex corners.
Turn 4 has a bit of a double apex as well. Before then, they start the flat-out downhill ride through 5, and then here at 6. Down towards turn 7, which is really a kind of getting yourself into position for turn 8.
We didn't have that little chicane that we went straight over the crown and into the... That would be an interesting variation. But of course, cars' speed entry, our entry speed would be quite high. Busy, it is a busy racetrack, and really drivers' work output, particularly in these circumstances where the track is still relatively green and not a massive amount of grip coming off from the track. You can see really there's lefts and rights and lefts and rights. Now on to this final straight where you get a moment, literally the only part of the racetrack you get a moment to catch your breath.
Down towards the final corner then comes Mark Szulzicki as they then come into the left-hander in the final corner. Quickest time we've seen so far, a 37.5 from Laurens Vanthoor. Across the line he comes, and it's a 38.9. So not particularly quick yesterday was Szulzicki in the Nissan.
But if you, I mean, just looking, that's the first flying lap for Szulzicki.
Yep.
The best lap yesterday was a 1:37.5. So for your opening gambit, I would say that's a pretty good effort. And you know, you're not going to be hard on it on your first flying lap. You may have slightly better rubber because people would not have been running ultimate rubber. The limit on the tyres is the best of your rest from the previous events, and then you've got 4 new sets for the qualifying and for both events, and you want to keep as many new sets as you've got as possible. So in fairness, I think that was a reasonable good outlap for the Nissan.
At the moment, Enzo Eid is about a 1/10 of a second quicker in the first sector. Really see them taking the dirt and the grass on the inside line of 8 there. As they climb up the hill, this is the furthest point on the circuit away from the main pit building.
Just interesting, just watching the Audi, you know, very good turn in. I mean, when he turns the wheel, the car responds. And I know that sort of sounds an obvious observation to make, and there he actually got caught out, turned in the back end, suddenly just didn't have enough grip. So your positive turn in, but there's still, if you're a little bit too aggressive or a bit too quick back on the throttle, back end will break traction, and that's going to take, you know, the best part of the remaining just under 10 minutes of this session to stabilize.
So Enzo Eid now 3.5 tenths down and decides to come into the pits anyway. Quickest man out there, Robin Freitz, 1 minute 38.417. A couple of tenths quicker than Mark Szulzicki. Within 3rd place, Stefan Rakelmi at the moment, James Nash, Enzo Eid, Alexei Vasiliev, and Albert von Turnhen-Taxis are the 7 men we've had set a lap time so far as Albert von Turnhen-Taxis returns to the pit lane. Swinging in through the left-hander, and Nick Katzberg sat waiting for his turn, which will be in Q2, and hopefully, as far as he's concerned, Q3. But a best first sector here for Stefan Rakelmi.
Yeah, so everybody just going through the motions. They've got 9 minutes remaining, so they've gone out. There's been work carried out on the cars overnight. Very often it's just simply a matter of going out, set a time, as Frank Stippler looks, as ever, totally calm, totally composed, and totally confident.
Riquelme down towards the final turn. His teammate Robin Freins is going quicker than him at the moment, though, by about 0.4 of a second in the first sector. So across the line comes Riquelme, sets a 1 minute 38.463, which puts him second quickest at the moment to Freins, but Freins is looking fast. A middle sector actually from Freins wasn't astonishing, lost a couple of tenths there, but this could still put him to the top. Across the line he comes, and it's a 1 minute 38.288.
Which is now, this morning, the quickest single lap.
Albert is back.
We're back into the garage, Albert Montana Taxis. And Laurent Van Thor sits patiently.
Oh, and that's Stefan Riquelme. I think that's down at turn 3 that Riquelme's had a moment there.
That's just indicative of where the circuit is. You know, you think you've got the grip, you think you can lean on it, and all of a sudden you're given a very rapid message from the back of the car saying, no, the grip is not there, and just be a little bit more gentle on the throttle or on the turn. And principally, I think the Audis, you were pointed out just how sharp the turn in. Is that a Porsche?
Yes, it is.
Just going back to the Audis, how sharp the turn in is, and that's how the car is set up to enable it to get into these very tight apexes, double apex, almost triple apex corners. The penalty is if the back isn't complementing the front, then you will get that very sudden snap oversteer. And it's not the first Audi. We've seen Enzo Eid also earlier in this session getting caught by the back not being able to live up to the grip of the front.
333 Rinaldi Ferrari down towards the final turn. Marco Seefried at the wheel. We're on board with him as he turns into the left. I don't think it's going to go quicker than the Audi, but he'll be there or thereabouts. Third quickest. Good final sector, actually. And so that's third place for the Rinaldi Ferrari. So Freins quickest at the moment, Riquelme second quickest, Seefried third quickest.
But this is a car-driver combination that's been threatening to win a race basically all season, and for a variety of reasons they've been picked upon. They've been they were like the schoolyard kid that gets kicked up by all the other bullies in the schoolyard. So they've suffered a lot of incidental damage, which has not been down to their two drivers. They've got two quick guys in that car, and that is a race-winning combination, make no mistake.
Absolutely. Maybe this could be the weekend that Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler make it onto the top step of the podium. In fact, make it onto any step of the podium. They've oh no, they were second, weren't they, in the qualifying race in Zolder, but that's the only time they've been on the podium so far this year. This is the 77 Brazilian BMW, currently in the hands of Valdeno Brito. Dropping down into the left-hander. A couple of tenths down in Sector 1. Sector 2 is very long here, and Sector 3 is just one corner, so it's an interesting balance in terms of sector times.
I think you've just nailed it. Balance. And right now, I think what the BMW has is that balance that gives the driver the confidence and faith, if you wish, that when he turns the steering wheel, the car will enter the corner. But principally, when you get to the apex, you've got a rear of the car that's sticking. So as you want to get on the throttle, it's not going to give you a moment of concern or fear. So it comes across the line, 139.5, not a reflection of the out-and-out true pace of the car. And I would not be surprised to see BMWs, as we saw yesterday. In fact, there were third quickest, Jimenez and Cacabueno, third quickest in the second of the three on a 37.8. So that lap time currently well away from what the potential of the car is, and I would expect in qualifying to see these, certainly one of the two Brazilian BMWs, well up the grid as we go into the sprint race later this morning.
This is Vincent Abril at the wheel of the 84 HDP Bentley. New livery this weekend as we go on board with the Monegasque driver, born in France but has grown up in Monaco since he was very young.
Well, now there's in trying to make 1 and 2 into what, 3, almost 3 you can say, but running very, very wide. Now if he runs and gets 4 wheels off the racetrack, in other words the left-hand wheels are across the sort of the demarcation line, that will be something that will be flagged up as abuse of track limits. And it's something that, with the nature of modern racetracks, you offer up temptation to a racing driver, and they don't need to be asked twice, are they going to take it? And it's only when they get penalised that they say, oh, well, you know, whatever. So Vincent Abril with the Bentley with a beautiful blue wrap. As is often the case, the cars are not sprayed these days, but they've got a wrap, a cellophane wrap that goes over the entire car. So A, it's a lot lighter, and B, probably no more expensive than having the car repainted.
Another
lockup indeed, yeah. For the
so they had lots of lockups yesterday in that 73 Nissan. Now these cars have ABS, so the fact that they're having some lockups down at the final corner isn't really a good sign for the MRS GT gang.
It's a strange thing to see a lockup with whether you can turn the ABS off or on. And Kevin Estra seemingly quite happy with. You know, so that's
he's not been out in this session.
Mate, I'm in Russia, I can't talk. Somebody might see what I'm saying.
So the Phoenix Audi is currently parked in the pit lane, and Mayor Melnoff hasn't been out. And you saw there he was in his nice Audi shirt and chinos. So, but Winkelhock looked racy. So maybe he's decided there's no point going out in free practice in the first qualifying session, because Winkelhock's going to be quicker anyway. At the moment, it's Robin Freins, the quickest man out there. Just a tenth and a half quicker than Vincent Abril in the 84 Bentley. Then Marco Seafried, third quickest. Rob Bell, fourth quickest, and Sean Walkinshaw, fifth quickest at the moment in that MRS Nissan.
Well, even though we had a locking brake coming into the final turn, the Nissan's showing, well, we've seen two Nissans, in fact, you know, the top five. So, you know, did I say these cars have got good top speeds, and this is the part of the racetrack, Bentley coming into the final turn, where that top speed will pay dividends? And in fact, we saw just the pace of the Nissan back again, referring back to the Enduro round at Paul Ricard. Nissan just powered past the Bentleys on the straight, not even needing to use a slipstream. So to have that kind of advantage as part of your armoury, that's something that is always preferable.
A minute and a half left to go in Q1, and Rob Bell has just gone quickest of anyone, 1 minute 37.956. That's a good lap from Rob Bell.
Viva McLaren!
In the Attempto Racing McLaren. Robin Freins second quickest. This is the 70 car, which is in the hands of Alexei Karachev. Crashed that car yesterday. It did quite a bit of damage to the left side, but managed to get it all fixed up, and they're back out. And at the moment they are 16th in the standings. This is Vincent Abril. Down towards the final corner, purple in sector 1, very good in sector 2, and across the line to do sector 3, and it's a 1 minute 37.822, quickest of anyone.
So we're getting near to the times that we saw at the end of FP2, free practice 2, on Friday evening more than afternoon, because track temperatures and ambient temperatures quite a lot different to those we are right now. I mean, it's coming up to 9:15 Saturday morning. Temperature still in the process of building, whereas late afternoon you have that kind of heat soak that you end up with, where it gets muggy and the air is heavy, which is good actually for downforce, but not necessarily for getting the best from your naturally aspirated engines, as opposed to some of the turbocharged engines, which make their own atmosphere in a sense.
There's Nick Hammond, and the 84 Bentley has just had its lap cancelled for track limits.
I'll give you a guess why. Go on, Jack. Tell me why. Wouldn't be that he overran the exit of turn 1 into turn 2, would it?
Quite
we
possibly.
saw him do it, and I said, you know, abuse of track limits. I would imagine that having caught it on board the spine, the cab saw it. So it may well be that Vincent Abril, with a very good lap indeed, picked up time as a consequence in the first sector. I think he was purple in that first sector from memory, so therefore it's been deleted.
That's Renaud Dufour, the man in charge of the HDP team, and he's no doubt seen the messaging on his timing screen that the lap's been deleted. Checker flag is out, and so I think that'll leave Rob Bell as the quickest man in that session. Still going out there. Rumbling down into the final corner is Alexei Vasiliev. The Russian racer comes through to take the checkered flag. And that's the end of his qualifying session for the time being. So, things looking good for the McLaren, because they didn't get that many laps in yesterday. Here's a look at the replay of Vincent Abril.
Now maybe there's the reason why, because took a lot of the curb and more, but I suspect that might just be one part of the racetrack. I don't think that would have benefited him massively. All he did do was kick up a lot of dust. I think it's the exit out of one, where you try to make 1 and 2 into that one sort of long parabolic sweep. So, and again, you potentially, by doing so, pick up a little bit of time.
Siegfried and Norbert Siedler.
Where did the Ferrari end up then? It fell away a little bit towards the end.
Fourth quickest it was in the end. Well, maybe third, depending on what happens with Vincent Abril's cancelled lap. But
it's such a sweet little car.
Yeah.
When you look at all the GT manufacturers that we've got, and you look down the pit lane, and if looks alone mattered, unlike going for somebody with an intelligent, you never look at a person and say, I'd go out with them because they're good looking. You go out because they're intelligent, they've got great eyes, you know, all those qualities. None of the superficiality of how does it look.
Here's a look at the results. Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch ending the session quickest of all. Well, Vincent Abril it was. Rob Bell, second quickest. Robin Freins, third. Marco Siegfried, fourth. Sean Walkinshaw, they're in fifth place. So we've got 5 manufacturers in the top 5 positions, haven't we? So that's looking competitive. Bentley, a McLaren, an Audi, a Ferrari, and a Nissan, all in the top 5. Bononomi, good lap from him, up in 7th place. And then further down, you have the cars that didn't go out onto the track, which was the 6 Phoenix Audi. And then 88, Albert von Turner Taxis went out and came back in again pretty much straight away, because they know that really it's all about the quicker driver.
Yeah, just there getting from our friendly drone, and you can get a view of that turn 1, turn 2, and really that's the turn 2 and then the long sweeping turn 3, and you can just see how tight that actually is from there, the view from the drone. Hopefully there'll be no low-flying aircraft with our drone in the air at the same time. We don't want any emergency avoidance to take place, but I don't think we're going to see much action over the circuit today, are we?
I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be all right. There's the Brazilian BMW. How did they fare in that session? Quickest was Valdeno Brito in 10th place, but Attila Abreu is now going to take over the 77 car. Very successful driver, Attila Abreu. He finished runner-up to Sebastian Vettel in German Formula BMW quite a number of years ago now.
Whatever happened to Vettel? What did he do?
And Sebastian Buemi was third in that championship.
I've never heard of him much either.
So, yeah, Attila Abreu second in that series, which was very impressive. And was second to Rubens Barrichello last year as well in the Brazilian stock car series. There's the Porsche, which is in the hands of Sergei Chukhanov and Ivan Samarin. And great to have a Porsche here from the Attempto Racing team. Now we're just waiting for the second qualifying segment to get underway. And this is where we'll get the quick guys in, who will try and get their cars into the top 10 for the pole position shootout.
Yes, so it'd be interesting to see, having had I would never call them number 2, but to say that the other driver in the partnership, they've gone out and done the bit of track cleaning that is always required after an overnight halt in proceedings. And we've already had nominated drivers for qualifying 3 for all the teams, who probably will pretty much mirror everybody who's going out in Q2. So it'll only be the top 10 that make it through, and this is going to be a bit of a white knuckle ride. Interesting that the McLaren with Kevin Estre, somebody who always is exciting to watch when he's driving a McLaren. And I mean, literally, he does drive the wheels off one of these cars. He's got that level of commitment and confidence, which just is, he's a standout star in the McLaren team.
Did Formula Campus and Formula Renault in France for a couple of years, but in 2008 he switched to GTs, racing in the Porsche Carrera Cup, and then going on to finish second in the Porsche Super Cup in 2012. There's Bononomi and Salaquada's car, and it's Philippe Salaquada who's going to be doing the second session. And out there goes Nick Katzberg, ready to take to the circuit.
Yeah, I've seen Nicky being very useful. I think is the best description I have for him. Certainly, gave a great account of himself at Brands Hatch in May, and one of those guys, a professional racing driver who does genuinely earn his fee when he gets behind the wheel.
Yep, was out in the World Touring Car Championship last weekend. As there we have in the 70 car, Christophe Bouchou, very experienced driver, won the Le Mans in 1993.
In a GT category, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, did he win it overall?
Overall.
Overall, I mean, very, very versatile driver. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it was, I'm trying to remember what it was in now. We'll find out. But the car's about to head out onto the track then for the second segment of qualifying.
It probably was a GT car because that's what was, at that point, Le Mans had sort of gone back into its more club-like days when we didn't have the LMP1 cars that are now the dominant factor. So you had things like the Porsche GT1 and McLaren GTRs. I'm just trying to work out, remember.
Peugeot 905.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was the end of... I can't remember.
With Eric Ellery and Jeff Brabham.
Okay. That was effectively what they call a Group C car. Yeah. Which had a V10 Peugeot engine. So that was a proper quick race car.
Yeah.
And then thereafter it was more the GT, the McLarens and Porsche that did the winning. And of course Le Mans now back to manufacturer-based, hybrid prototype cars.
So out onto the circuit has come the Zero car, now in the hands of Caca Bueno. And he's tucked right up behind Norbert Siedler.
Quite keen to get ahead of the Ferrari because obviously he feels with there's just under 15 minutes remaining in the session in the back end of the Ferrari, looking a little bit unstable. Of course, when they get onto the straight, well, he slipped up the inside now, so Caca Bueno a little bit more confident at this opening lap.
Yep.
As he makes his way now on the return leg of the racetrack onto the fastest part, up to about 250 kilometers per hour. Nicky Katzberg on the brakes. You can see the dive as he goes into turn one, and not using the extreme limits of the circuit. So I would expect, I mean, look, he's on it.
Yeah.
Nicky Katzberg is on it.
Pushing hard in the early stages is Nicky Katzberg, with 13 minutes of this session still to go. We've yet to have a first flying lap. Hans Reiter there on the right. And on the left-hand side was Albert von Turner Taxis, a 32.0 in the first sector for Nick Katzberg. That is a really good first sector time, and this could be impressive straight off the bat for Nick Katzberg.
Well, I mean, again, just the way the car, you can see the way he is using the car. You can see the way the rear of the car in particular is being loaded up and particularly under power. So Nicky Katzberg was not out there just to illustrate an out lap. Runs a little bit wide, but within the I would say the realms of fairness. So 32.033 in that first sector, purple. And that reflects this session, of course, not the best that might have been achieved in the or qualifying one. So now up the straight, but purple in the second sector again.
We may see him going faster than, although Jules Simkowiak has actually lapped a quicker first sector by a couple of fractions of a second. Into the final corner comes Nick Katzberg then, our first representative lap time of Q2 here at Moscow Raceway. And it's a 37.464, the best lap time that we've seen so far this weekend. And that's a good start to the session, but here's Jules Simkowiak, the Dutchman at the wheel of the Bentley Continental. Personal, well, best of anyone in Sector 1. We'll get his Sector 2 time in a moment when he comes through this right-hander of 14 and out onto the back straight. And what's it going to be? Oh, he's half a second down, though.
He's down, yes. But remember, this is a physically large car. It's very light on its wheels and tires. Nevertheless, it is a physically large car. Whereas the Lamborghini, very much a more nimble mid-engine car. So let's see whether Jules Simkowiak can draw something back in that final sector. Goes fourth quickest.
Yep, a 38.411, so a second down on Katzberg, who, well, had set the fastest first sector of anyone, but now that's gone to Christopher Meath. This is Laurens van Thorp. Personal bests, and he's there or thereabouts in terms of sector times, but at the moment not running right at the front. Van Thor across the line of 38.165, 7 tenths down into turn one.
I mean, really, all these drivers now are concerned about is ensuring that they make it into the top 10. Whether they're fastest or 10th quickest, in a sense, is not particularly relevant. It's getting through to the top 10. Vincent Valls, the boss of the WRT team, keeping an eye on all these Audis. And this is, BMW just coming onto the back straight. So the number 2 car with Christopher Meath behind the wheel. So what's he going to do as he comes across the line?
Second.
Yeah, good effort from Christopher Meath.
37.440. That's because Nick Katzberg just improved to do a 37.1. So very impressive from Nicky Katzberg. 3.5 tenths clear of the rest of the pack at the moment. There you see James Nash and Stefan Rakelmi watching their teammates out there. Now here's Kaka Bueno. Norbert Siedler's just gone 3rd quickest. And Katzberg's just gone quickest again in the first sector, so he's really on a mission, Nick Katzberg. This is the 0 BMW that we're watching. Kaka Bueno, 5-time Brazilian stock car champion. Let's see what he's got in sector 1. 32 dead, the benchmark. 4 tenths down already. On board through 6, up towards 7 and 8 now.
A little quick change of direction and then get the car into the first part of this is the most distant part of the circuit, and now you start your way back again through this series of entwining rights and lefts, and with little subtle dips just right on the apex, just to make it that little bit more tricky to get the nose of the car in. But the BMW is certainly responding to the wheel, and the gradual climb back up into this penultimate corner and then onto the back straight.
And this is where the BMW will suffer a little bit. Already 1.2 seconds down, though, is Kaka Bueno. Nicky Katzberg's just dipped into the 1 minute 36s, so 1 minute 36.976 for Nicky Katzberg. Into the pits now comes Kaka Bueno. Christopher Meath is 2nd quickest still, just less than half a second down. But Katzberg is really flying out there. Still 8 minutes to go. And this is Laurens van Thor. Personal best in sector 1, but a couple of tenths down on Christopher Meath. Winding up, and he's got a bit of traffic in front of him, but he's coming out onto the back straight now, so hopefully shouldn't cause too much drama.
Well, he's under the rear wing of the Mercedes, so that'll give him a marginal benefit as he comes down the straight. The Mercedes not running at full speed, I would have assumed, because the Audi came past somewhat easily, but that's all to the benefit of Laurens van Thor. Gets it stopped. Looks like he was just about tippy-toeing into the apex. Didn't maybe need to be a little bit as late in the brakes.
So, a second down. Personal bests in sectors 1, 2 and 3, but 9 tenths slower than Nicky Katzberg.
And Robin Friens keeping an eye on the timing and scoring, and he's mulling away what the potential is for qualifying, and probably slightly concerned that if they can't get that number 1 Audi up onto the front row of the grid, it's going to be a big ask for Robin, who's probably most likely going to be the starting driver, not necessarily, but could well be the starting driver for the qualifying race later in the afternoon.
Maximilian Buch, we're on board with now. Through 5, then down to 6. Almost 4 tenths down in sector 1.
Bit a strange year for Max Buch. He hasn't, shown the kind of almost dominant form that we've seen from him in the 2 previous seasons. And of course, again, the last round of the sprint championship was at, the penultimate one was at Brands Hatch when he had that massive off on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend. That's not having any effect on him, but just hasn't quite found the groove in the way that we were so familiar with in the previous 2 seasons.
And is that switching to a Bentley? Can that affect you, or is it a car's a car?
Well, it seems as if he and the Mercedes were just made for each other. They seem to be bonded together in a way where they were synonymous. He hasn't yet quite made that connection with the Bentley. The Bentley probably is the better at the handling of the 2 cars. But when you've got a package where you're so much integrated into it as he was within the HTP Mercedes rather than the HTP Bentley, so it might just be that he needs to get into the relationship with the Bentley a little bit deeper to get the best out of himself and the car.
5 minutes to go in Q2 then. There's Vincent Abril, teammate of Maximilian Buch.
Now that also might be an issue because Vincent Abril, yeah, Kevin always trying, and he's doing a bit of, that's not really the ideal approach. That's down at the far end of the racetrack. Yeah, but that's Kevin Estre. Never say stop pushing. That's the second lap we've seen the Porsche coming down in the middle of the straight, and you would say that the car wasn't going particularly quickly, but on that long camera shot it's difficult to tell. Nicky Katzberg 36.9, which is, to my knowledge, the first driver to break into the 136s all weekend.
Yep, and he's half a second quicker than the rest of the pack at the moment. There's Marcus Winkelhock, who's up into 4th position in the Phoenix Racing Audi. Multiple Le Mans not Le Mans, Nürburgring 24-hour winner, and Spa 24-hour winner.
Yeah.
But here's a personal best then in Sector 1 for the Bentley, but 8 tenths down after the middle sector. Max Buch again at the wheel. So, I mean, they should get through to the top 10.
Well, he's going into the pit,
they're in 6th at the moment.
He's got just under 4 minutes remaining, and I suspect that unless he's got a problem, I wouldn't imagine he's going to be going back out, because the length of time it would come to change, get into the pit, make a change, go back out again, and then go onto a flying lap with 3.5 minutes remaining. Their session, as we see with the Lamborghini and Nicky Katzberg, who's done an outstanding job this morning for the Ryder Engineering Lamborghini Gallardo. Still a really competitive car, even though now been superseded by the Huracan, which is an even more impressive piece of kit. And that's running out to the ragged edge, and Greg Dolby kicking up a load of dust on the exit of turn 1.
Yep, that's the tricky part. If you run too wide, then you hit the grass just as you're braking for 2. Saw that happen to Mark Szaldzicki yesterday. Now then, here comes Norbert Siedler warming up his tyres, and this is his chance to go for it. Currently 3rd quickest, comes out onto the start-finish straight, across the line, and goes for it.
So we just got to pick your spot there. And literally, you can see at the red and white curbing, that's the point of the nose in the Ferrari dip. Again, doesn't caught the dust from Dolby's Nissan there. Still a little bit dirty on the outside of the track, and you could almost see a hesitation from Norbert Siedler as he makes his way into turn 3, and again this ever tightening, really late apex, then run the curb, then again on the brakes, the nose of the Ferrari dips, double apex, then drops down the hill, and then you get a short breathing space through the quick rights, and then onto the brakes again as you come into this left, and again dust being kicked from the Ferrari, but the car ahead of the Ferrari likewise. Trying to catch that on camera. Don't see who it is. Maybe it was the Porsche.
So 32.2 in Sector 1. Isn't particularly amazing. Good 2 or 3 tenths slower than he needs to be, Norbert Siedler. Through that double left, and then starts to climb back up the hill in towards the final turn, or the penultimate turn, I should say, and onto the back stretch.
So personal best, 2nd sector, so picked up a little bit of time, and all he has to do is ensure that this car is into the top 10 and remains so with just a little over a minute. So he'll have one more lap, one more flying lap. The checkered flag will come out midway through the lap. Still Nicky Katzberg quickest overall, the 136.976, and I would be surprised if anybody at this late stage is going to challenge that. Whoa.
Oh, that's
number 4.
Frank Stippler.
Frank does not normally do that. He's looking for a bit of the racetrack where he can come on without getting too much rubbish onto the tyres, namely grass. So gets back on, of course, that's the lap lost, and he's not going to get to now go on to a final flying lap because the clock is ticking down with 40 seconds to go.
So we saw a very happy Alexei Vasiliev there, but we also saw Laurens Vanthoor looking at the timing screens and wondering, where am I going to find a second? Because and half a second as well to his teammate Christopher Mies. That's the thing, when it's another car in another team, you go, okay, I'll find that second, it's tough, but fine. But when you've got a half a second deficit to your teammate out there, then you've got to ask questions of yourself, I suppose.
Well,
Kevin Estre running
again,
wide.
Yeah, doing it again. You might say that, but did have an incident yesterday. It got a fair amount of damage done to it, so it's been worked on literally through the early hours of the morning. And you know, it's so, cars are so sensitive. A driver will go out within the space of almost leaving the pit lane. He'll say, yes, it feels great, or no, there's something I'm not quite happy with. And I would not be surprised if the number 1 car is going through that little bit of subtle adjustment just to enable both Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor to know that they've got the car that they can lean on. And again, of course, they're going to save the best of their tyres until the end as well. So the tyres that are on the car may not be the selection that they will use in a few minutes' time when we get down to Q3, which will ultimately determine the grid or the sprint race a little bit later.
Through the left-hander comes 75, Philippe Salaquada, and he gets into 10th place just about.
But the Bentley behind, is it going to eclipse or is it already ahead?
No, Jules Simkovic remains in 8th position. No movement there for the Mercedes as 77. Attila Abreu has not had the best of laps, and it's 14th place for the 77 car. Yes. That is not a good qualifying session at all.
So let's have a look and see what Audi's going to do. And it's Frank Stippler at 12th. Well, that'll be a disappointment for Frank, because obviously he ran wide. We saw that on that lap. He had to go away around the back of the corner. So bit of a mix and match right now for WRT Audi. Inevitably, when it comes down to the session that's going to count, they will pull something out of the hat. And normally it's just in association with something black, round, and probably how they knew were very fresh.
Here's a look at the standings after Q2 then. Or in that second qualifying session, I should say. Nick Katzberger, 1 minute 36.976, 4.5 tenths of a second quicker than anyone else. And so it certainly looks as though this track is taking a bit of dialing into. Laurens Vanthoor, 9 tenths of a second down. So Vanthoor 4 tenths slower than he managed yesterday. Ortelli there in 6th, Buch in 7th, 7th and 8th for the two Bentleys. Bueno is in 9th place along with Sergio Jimenez. And then these are the guys who won't be making it through to the final top 10 shootout. And Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito, I think, really one of the... Oh, actually, Walkinshaw and Dolby, 1.8 seconds down. They looked very quick in free practice 1. Both the Nissans, 16th and 17th.
I have to say, I'm surprised, because we know that those cars are potentially very quick indeed. And all of a sudden, their times have just evaporated, so they're not going to be in this final top 10 shootout, which I don't know whether it will be a bigger shock to the Nissan drivers or to you and me up in the commentary booth. We would have put them, certainly one of those two cars getting through to the top 10, and they're going to have an awful lot of hard work in the sprint race to try and really, all they would be looking to do is get track position for the main race later on in the afternoon.
Absolutely. So there is Christopher Mies remaining in at the wheel of the number 2 WRT Audi. Christopher Mies starting his racing career in the German Toyota Yaris Cup before moving on to FIA GT3, which he won back in 2009. Blancpain Endurance Series champion as well. Had his first taste of a single-seater actually at the end of last year with a little test at Abu Dhabi in GP3. Before then, he'd never actually driven a single-seater. Katzberg. Is he the favourite to take pole position? It's got to be really with that kind of qualifying time. The marshals out on circuit just sweeping away some of the muck. This is probably the most used international circuit in Russia. World Touring cars come here. Formula Renault have come here in the past. They have bikes as well. And there's obviously the new Formula One circuit at Sochi, but that doesn't tend to get much use outside of Formula One events.
I mean, what they've created here is, I think, is a really impressive facility. The pits, all the infrastructural side of the circuit as well. You're up to the standards of anything around the world. The circuit itself, the first half, is in bits a little bit tight and twisting, but they have got an option or two towards the far end of the circuit, particularly there's that little quick flick left and right. You could actually delete that and just go straight down in, and it would be an interesting approach because you'd be coming to that left-hand corner at the far end of the circuit. Actually, it would be a blind approach and be a very challenging corner. I would like to see that, and I'd like to see what difference it would make to a lap time, and it might just offer up another overtaking opportunity where currently there's not one at that far end of the racetrack.
Kevin Estre at the wheel of his McLaren 650S. Still waiting for the kind of performance we know that Estre, Bell and that McLaren have in them. We saw flashes of it at Brands Hatch, but not quite to the level that we were hoping for. Marcus Winkelhock there in the number 6 car. So it'll be Van Thor, Mies, Ortelli, Winkelhock, Estre, Simkoviak, Buch, Katzberg and Seidler are top 10. There is Winkelhock. And the trouble for Phoenix, he says, is that they've got no teammates. WRT they're running the Audi R8 as well, and they've got 4 cars, 8 drivers that they can all use to test different things, whereas the Phoenix guys, it's just them two.
Well, you got Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff, who's sort of...
But as in, there isn't another car.
Ah, okay. They're just a solo, I understand that. Yeah, I mean, it does help to have the backup of another car to overlay, any changes that are being made.
So Sergio Jimenez not looking particularly happy. Talking to Caca Bueno there on the left.
Well, you get 2 drivers having a different opinion about how a car should be set up.
Yeah, they're...
yeah. Might be able to drive up, but we've got to share a car. Usual sort of stuff that goes on between different drivers. You can see, look, there we go, loads and loads of... That's the understeer. Front end... You get an oversteer, and Caco's looking very cool and laid back, and, well, I don't have that problem, mate.
Well...
Who's quicker in the car, mate?
Well, neither of them, neither Brazilian BMW through to the top 10. As you see the cooling going straight on the RJ and Nissan.
I have to say, I am surprised. I'm surprised that neither Nissan made it into the top 10. Now,
yeah,
I don't know why, but, it's a good car. I mean, Shalitsky's a good driver. He should have, I would have thought, had the pace in that car. But it just goes to prove I actually can be wrong sometimes.
Make a note of this. Make a note of this moment on the on this Saturday. So Q3 10-minute session to decide pole position. First out on track is going to be the WRT Audi. I think of Stefan Ortelli. No, Christopher Mies. In the number 2 WRT Audi. The German driver, former Blancpain Endurance Series champion. 2 times winner of the Bathurst 12-hour. Won the Nürburgring 24-hour earlier on this year as well. And he's looking to get up to pace as he roars down through 5 and 6. There's some new tyres going on the 83 Bentley, which Jules Simkoviak will be starting.
In fact, those have been run.
Have they?
Yep, just that left front certainly looks like it's not a brand new tyre. May not have done very many laps, but certainly they weren't, you know, a pair of sticker tyres. As Christopher Mies got a...
He's the only man on track at the moment.
Yeah, well, you know, everybody's going to go for a one-lap wonder. I mean, they've got to probably going to use a new set of tyres, and that set of tyres will have one fast lap. That will be the first time lap. Christopher Mies might just be going out to check something before he comes in and goes down that route.
So yeah, a very unusual situation. Normally we see the cars heading straight out in Q3.
Yeah, but I suspect, and this time I could be right, that most of the top 10 are just going to wait and use the best of their tyre or a new set of tyres.
Absolutely.
And just go out and give it one blitz lap, and if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. At least they're all going to be in the top 10.
This is Christopher Mies then, down into turn 2. On the power, then into the long right-hander at 3. Come in, take a bit of an apex, then run out wide. Whoa, back end going, keeps it together. Does that, doesn't quite hook up the second apex as a result.
And you think he might have backed out of it already because it doesn't look like there's a lot of load going into the car.
Yeah, 32.2 in sector 1 is about 4/10 slower than he can do. As some more cars fire up and rumble down the pit exit. There they go.
Yeah, so they've got 7 minutes or so. So an out lap will be the best part of 95, say 100 seconds. And then a flying lap will be, yeah, just under 100 seconds, but 1 minute 36 if you're on it.
Marcus Finkelhock resting. Oh, that was Stefano Telli, my apologies. I'm not very good with recognising closed driver eyes.
I was going to say, eyelids are not your big thing, are they?
So, this is Christopher Mies then, heading down the back straight. Purple's in sector 1 and 2, but he's the first man out on circuit. So it'll be more representative when we get a lap time. A 36.9 is the best we've seen so far, and a 37.3 is the quickest time we've seen from Christopher Mies. Across the line he comes, and it's a 37.7, so not a bad first sighter.
Well, not going to be good enough because we've seen a 36.9 from Nicky Katzberg in the Lamborghini, and you would like to think that that would have been done on a set of tyres that, in my view, would not have been, whoa, the back end, look at that, dancing around the nose as it comes through these.
And that's more like it in sector 1 from Laurens Vanthoor, 31.8.
Certainly, the balance of this Audi is pinpointed. I mean, there's nothing there. If you lose the back, it'll be a big handful to keep it. So Laurens Vanthoor really skating on the thinnest of ice to keep the car in control.
Hassling it down through this double left-hander. Out onto the little stretch in between the two. Then it's turn 13 here. Climbing the hill up towards 14. Now we'll get a good representation of his middle sector time as he comes out and breaks the timing beam. And he's only fractionally up on Christopher Mies at the moment. So he's lost about 4/10 in that middle sector, Laurens Vanthoor. And now into the final turn. You've got Christopher Mies behind, who's looking reasonably quick, but not actually much quicker than he's already gone. So Vanthoor across the line to set a 1 minute 37.784, fractionally slower than his teammates. So are we seeing the end so far of the Freitz Vanthoor domination? They've had pole in the last 2 events. They've had pole in every qualifying session they've managed to finish. Jules Simkowiak.
So personal best for Simkowiak, but he goes third, 38.1.
So Nicky Katzberg has just done the fastest first sector of anyone, a 31.850. There's a rather concerned looking Robin Freitz. But Nicky Katzberg is out there in the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, and he is looking super fast. Here he is now, into 13.
Fastest first sector. The thing that we noticed with Nicky Katzberg was he could really pick the Lamborghini up, chuck it into a corner, and the back of the car was staying with the driver.
He's only a tenth and a half up though at the moment on, well, that's because Norbert Seidler has just gone quickest of anyone, a 1 minute 37.196. So Katzberg is slightly up on that time. So we could see Katzberg back into the 1 minute 36s, out of the final corner. Across the line comes the Dutchman, and we do 1 minute 36.908. Quickest lap of the weekend so far. Seidler is second quickest. Third quickest is Kevin Estre in the Ferrari. WRT Audi's fourth and fifth.
In a McLaren, Kevin Estre.
Yeah, McLaren, sorry. Marcus Winkelhock has just gone 0.2 of a second quicker in Sector 1 than Nicky Katzberg. Great first sector from Winkelhock. Through the final corner comes Laurens Vanthoor. Is there going to be any improvement from him? 37.4. Better, but still fourth place.
And I mean, that really is a struggle as we go back to... Let's look and see. Oh,
so Winkelhock through the middle sector. What's it going to be for him? He's a tenth and a half up on Nicky Katzberg. This is a great drive from Marcus Winkelhock. He said yesterday he really enjoys the track. Great memories of racing here in 2012, the year he won the GT1 World Championship. Gets on the brakes into the final corner.
Little J just had to make a small adjustment at the point of turning in, but not really going to affect his time. Goes second.
So he lost about 0.3 of a second in that final sector, did Marcus Winkelhock. But that's second quickest for him. Quickest of the Audis as well. Here's the Ferrari into the final turn. Don't think we're going to see much from them. The middle sector isn't that great, and as a result they remain in third place.
Not a bad place to start, and I think if they can stay, relatively out of trouble as Max Buch. So let's see what the young German can manage. This Frenchman, I just wonder whether Max's performances this year are a reflection of Vincent Abril being a little bit too close for comfort.
Through the final turn comes Stefan Ortelli, about to set his first time, and it's a 38.460, so that's ninth place. Kevin Estre behind, comes across the line, remains in fourth. So it's Katzberg in the Lamborghini, Winkelhock in the Audi, Seidler in the Ferrari, Estre in the McLaren, the top four at the moment, and then it's Laurens Vanthoor for WRT. So whatever's happening at the moment for WRT, they don't seem to quite have the pace. Through the final turn corner comes Christopher Mies. No personal bests. Simkoviak's done a personal best in 1 and 2. We're on board with Max Buch, who's done a personal best in Sector 1, but he's 0.2 slower than his teammate in Sector 1 and 0.3 slower than the provisional pole position time.
And Max Buch is in there somewhere. I mean, he's a little guy, and he's almost lost within the, you can almost have a football pitch in the side, inside a Bentley.
Well, it's like when we interview him for the start of the show.
Oh man, Kevin Estre, what have you done?
He's put it in the barriers.
But has he hit the barrier? The rear wing is a black rear wing, and it's hard to tell whether he's actually reversed it up to the barrier or just short of it, but certainly his session has finished only 52. It's a red flag indeed.
So that is the end of the qualifying session here in Moscow. Red flag out because Kevin Estre has put it in the wall, and that means that Nicky Katzberg for Reiter Engineering Lamborghini is going to start on pole position for the qualifying race later on. A tenth and a half quicker than Winkelhock. Oh, and it's all getting a bit smoky up the back there.
It's not very nice because that car is close to the rubber band, sort of that protects the tire barrier, the rubber belt. So I don't know whether that's smoke coming from the back of the car. Oh, look at that. Is he enjoying it? Is he enjoying?
So there's Albert von Turnen Taxis over the moon with that one. And Hans Reiter delighted too. But there is Kevin Estre. So he's backed it in. I don't know how much he has backed it in. And they're saying, look, you got to go away. And he's going, no. It's a red flag, so it's fine. But not quite sure where that is either. But Katzberg on pole, Winkelhock second. Oh, here we go then. This is what happened to Kevin Estre. We've seen him go off twice here so far today. Comes through the left at 8. Then down towards 9. That's all okay. Or does he get on the grass on turn in? No, just loses the back end on turn in there. And how heavy does he hit the barriers? Or he's not going to hit them that hard, if at all, actually. A little nudge. And That's the red flag. So he's still going to start fourth, Kevin Estre, despite bringing out the red flag. And good to see he's okay and just sorting out the, or he's going to sit in it, is he, as they tow it back. So let's have a look at the results of that qualifying session. It's pole position for the Reiter Engineering Lamborghini. Nick Katzberg setting that time. Marcus Winkelhock will be in second place on the grid. And I think all this means that Albert von Turnen Taxis will start on pole position this afternoon, which could be pretty fun. It could be Albert and Nicky actually starting on the front row. Then we've got Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried third, Bell and Estre in fourth position, Robin Frantz and Laurens Vanthoor fifth on the grid. So disappointing for them. And in fact for WRT, fifth, sixth and ninth. One driver didn't set a time in that final Q3 session, but it's Albert von Turnen Taxis and Nicky Katzberg who take pole position here in Moscow. So that's the conclusion of the session. John Watson is just disappearing underneath the grandstand now, so he'll be having a quick word with the drivers, hopefully before too long, but it is a bit of a trek over to the other side. And there is Laurens Vanthoor, not looking happy. That's the first time that he hasn't had pole position this season in a session that he has finished. And in fact, WRT, not the fastest of the Audis. Phoenix Audi looking quicker. But lots of high fives up at the top of the pit lane where Nick Katzberg and Marcus Winkelhock are. And a really quick qualifying performance from them, no doubt about that. And there you can see them all congratulating each other. There's Marcus Winkelhock. High five with Norbert Siedler from the Rinaldi Ferrari team. So I think we've got a great afternoon of racing on our hands now after that qualifying session. It's all a bit not quite topsy-turvy because you've got mega quick drivers at the front of the field, but they're not our championship contenders. Nick Katzberg and Albert von Turnen Taxis are going to be waiting up there. There is Nick Katzberg then in the middle and Winkelhock alongside him, and great to see Vinky looking happy as the marshals now clear away some of the debris after the excursions that we've had out there on the circuit. And a really strong performance from Nick Katzberg as he now looks like he's making his way away under the bridge towards the press conference after that qualifying session. Great work from the Russian marshals as ever. So let's look back at that qualifying session here at the Moscow Raceway. What an entertaining session it became. The 71 car of Alexei Vasiliev looking forward to getting out at his home circuit. Max Buch and Vincent Abril focused ahead of the session. 54 Porsche, great to have Attempto Racing bringing a Porsche here this weekend. Out on circuit, Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito, the second place men in the championship, really struggled, as did the Nissans. A little lock up there from Craig Dolby and Sean Walkinshaw, so that's something that will be worth investigating. Jules Simkowiak looked happy because his Bentley got through into the top 10, as did the 84 Bentley, but not as high as they would have wanted, really kicking up the dust there. Vincent Abril actually ended Q1 quickest, so the pace is there in the Bentley, if they can just find out how to unlock it. Then Philippe Salaquada took over at the ISR Audi for Q2. which would decide the drivers that would be going through to the final segment of qualifying, which was the pole position shootout. Nick Hammond at the wheel of that RJ and Nissan. Sergio Jimenez, sorry, it was at the wheel of the 0 car, desperate to try and get past. But Nicky Katzberg was the man who seemed to be on a bit of a mission. And it turned out to be the case. Albert von Turner, Taxis and Hans Reiter watching on. That was the first of Kevin Estra's excursions into the grass. And Robin Freitz was looking concerned because his teammate Laurens van Thor didn't seem to have the pace. A little bit of a dust kick up there from Craig Dolby. And the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari pushing hard, and they are going to be starting from quite high up the grid. A really good performance from their Maz Evert, and they've always said if they can get their qualifying pace sorted, they'll be all right. A little off for Frank Stippler at turn 3. Then another moment for Kevin Estra, that time just running a little bit wide, really trying to get everything he can out of that McLaren. Sergio Jimenez pushing hard, but neither of the Brazilian BMWs managed to get through to the top 10 pole position shootout. And that'll be a source of frustration, I think, for them. So then it was time for the pole position shootout. Stefano Telli getting focused as the cars made their way out onto the circuit for the final 10 minutes of the qualifying session. 88, Nick Katzberg in the Reiter Lamborghini. Never looked like he could be stopped. Absolutely superb performance from Katzberg. The 84 Bentley of Max Buch, not as quick as he would have wanted to be. But then the red flag came out because of a spin for Kevin Estra, and that meant that Nicky Katzberg and Albert von Turner Taxis there will start on pole position ahead of the Blancpain Sprint Series race. This is where it went wrong for Kevin Estra. Back end just got away from him, coming into the left-hander, and clouded the barriers. But it's pole for Katzberg and Reiter. So we can now hear from Stefano Telli, 9th quickest in that session, and it looks like a difficult day for WRT so far. He's with John.
Stefano Telli, you've got a look on your face that says you're not really sure where your car is.
Oh, for sure we are not in the front, but I mean, it's a tough qualifier, I have to say. I had a bit of hard time, but at the same time, it's still a big pleasure to drive here. It's a demanding track, you know, there is a lot of corners, so once you do one corner wrong, you can have some more corners wrong. But mainly, we did some testing yesterday in terms of setup, and apparently we didn't go to the right direction, so we changed the car to the sister car setup this morning, and I just had to learn. So I used my first set of tires just to readapt myself. Unfortunately, it was not quick enough to be on Q3, so we had to put a second set of tires, which was quick. I was 1/10 behind Lorenz, but then no tires for the Q3, so that's the game, you know. I tried, and we will be strong for the race for sure, but P9 is not what we want.
Well, just watching in those 3 sessions, the qualifying sessions, that the WRT Audis generally, they've got really sharp turning, but it's the back of the car that looks like it's not stable enough for you.
It's for us, it's always a mix of not having too much understeer, especially when you put new set of tires. So you have to be a bit on the edge with the rear. But for sure, on my car, I was more suffering from the understeer. So if the rear was moving on Q3, it's because it was not new tires. That's it.
All right, well, anyway, it'll come right on the day. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
So good to hear from Stefano Telli, and he will no doubt be hoping that the race pace, well, the race pace needs to be better than the qualifying pace, to be honest. 9th on the grid for Stefano Telli and his Monegasque teammate Stefan Riquelme. But pole position for Nicky Katzberg and Albert von Turner Taxis, who are now in the press conference in the media centre, which is just in that building there on the right-hand side under the white banners. And hopefully we'll be hearing from our pole sitter later on, Albert von Turner Taxis. Or will it be... No, it'll be Nick Katzberg starting on pole position later, because he is down as driver too. So it'll be Katzberg on pole. It'll be this gang on pole position. And then Von Taxis will take over. Nicky Melnoff will take over. And Marco Seefried will take over. So I think the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari is the car that's looking in the strongest position at the moment. Here's a look at the points as it stands. 27 points clear. Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor, they're going to be starting in 5th place on the grid. But Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito not even in the top 10. Ortelli and Raquelme are 9th. So Abril and Buch are in 8th position. So it really is it could have the potential to mix up the championship this afternoon, because all of our top 6 in the championship not having a particularly good run. Max Martin and Dirk Muller not competing. So it could be a chance for the likes of Melnoff and Winkelhock to really haul themselves into title contention. Same could be said of Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler and Rob Bell and Kevin Estre. I think we're in for a really entertaining afternoon of racing here in Moscow. Further down, you got then Nick Katzberg, the pole man, only 11 points so far this year. He hasn't competed in all of the races. James Nash and Frank Stippler, 15th in the standings at the moment. And you got Simkoviak, Dillman, Karachev, Schneider, Peter Cox, Alexei Vassiliev, Christoph Bouchou will be looking to pick up a couple more points. So that's the end of the qualifying session. The race will get underway later on, about 1 o'clock local time, which is 11 o'clock in the UK. So let's hear from Albert von Taxis. His teammate Nick Katzberg has taken pole position for the Blancpain Sprint Series race in Moscow.
Albert, you always look happy, but you've got an extra big smile on your face. Why?
Well, we're finally on P1. It's a very, very nice moment for us. We have anticipated that the circuit would suit us. We were hoping that we can really maximize on traction. And it was really just, we have very little time in these practices. Everything's very tight. We just, for once, did everything right. We did the little changes that we did were good. Were actually very good. We found some little things that surprised ourselves, and we also are very on point with the tires, with the pressures, with the temperatures. It could not come together better for us.
For me, always the most important thing for a racing driver is to be confident with his car. Your car has looked really drivable, and it's giving you lots of confidence.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Lamborghini is a great fun to drive here. It's a very, very technical track. A lot of grip needed, a lot of traction needed. A little mistake can translate into a huge time delta, and you really need a car that permits you to attack. And I think we really have the perfect car at the moment.
Make good use of it. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
A very happy Albert von Taxis then here at Moscow Raceway. He and Nick Katzberg are going to be starting on pole position for Reiter Engineering Lamborghini. Right alongside them on the front row is going to be Markus Winkelhock and Nicky Melnoff in the Phoenix Audi. Then the Rinaldi Ferrari in 3rd place of Siedler and Seefried. Estre and Bell start in 4th place. What a tantalising front 2 rows. Make sure you join us for the qualifying race later on this afternoon.